Okay, let us start. What I have done so far is forward kinematics. You know what is forward kinematics? That means you know how your joint angles are. Okay, where is your joint angles? How are they? Okay, knowing all the joint angles, your shoulder joint angles, your elbow joint angle, your wrist angles. If you know all the angles, you know what are the link lengths and the joint offsets. Four parameters that you know is required to define a link. And if you know them all, you know where you are. That means where is your end effector located. Okay, so that is fine. That is where you are, but whether it is actually there where I have commanded. Okay, or where should I command first of all? If at all I have to command, how I should command the robot to go there? So that is what is the problem of inverse kinematics. Inverse kinematics starts with the end effector position known. That is where I want to go. Okay, that is the input that I have. Okay, so that is the input that I have. Okay, so that is what is the definition of for inverse kinematics. Okay, so it says given the end effector pose here means position and orientation both, not just the pose, orientation or a position. It should define completely the robot. If it is a 6 degree of freedom robot or a 7 degree of freedom robot, end effector pose has to be given. That is where you want to go. Okay, that is the first input that we know. Now I have to command the robot to go there. In order to do that, I have to command my joints, because it is joint which is to be commanded. That is where your actuators are lying. Okay, so you have to calculate those angles. If you can take those joints to that particular angles, robot automatically will go there. Okay, will it go or it will not go, that is a different matter, we will discuss later. But as far as practicable, if at all you have calculated an angle, let us say you have a link, okay, you have some angle from the floor. This end effector will reach here if it makes, let us say, 30 degree from the floor. Okay, if it is 45 degree, it will take you to some other place. Okay, if I want to go to a particular location, there is a particular angle for that particular location, and if I take that angle for that link, okay, that particular actuator, then definitely it is expected that end effector will reach to that particular position. Okay, so that is how it is. Let me also show you a very good breakdance video. Why I wanted to show you, I have just earlier days, your robots were not very smooth to say, because this type of motion is very important, inverse kinematics based motion. Let us say your robot want to go to a particular place. Let me just expand it once again so that I can. Okay, so if at all you have a robot with a frame which is fitted here, okay, I want to take this robot in a trajectory somewhere, in a trajectory. So for each and every point on this trajectory, okay, each and every point on this trajectory, this particular link will have a particular solution. Okay, for every point it will have some solution. You got it? So that is how it should go. That means for a given trajectory, you have set of trajectory which is joint trajectory. Okay, and that is to be followed if at all you want to make your robot to go to a particular, move in a particular trajectory. So inverse kinematics based motion is very important, because you want your robot to move smooth, not like a robot literally. And that was earlier depicted. You just see this video. I'll show you this video now. What this shows. So is it this way our real robot should work? So you saw this, it was quite entertaining. So what was this actually? This was earlier perception of robots. That means people used to move your robot like you first move one joint, then next joint, then next joint, then next joint, then next joint. It goes something like this. So actually this is not the case with current day robots. Okay, they move smooth. That means you need not to command robot joint by joint, one by one, and end effector goes to a particular place after sequence of commands for each and every joint. Okay, that is not the way a robot, current day robot moves. Okay, so that is only there in dance now, which is known as robotic dance or a break dance or something like that. So it doesn't exist no more anymore in robotics world. Maybe your hobby toys and those things still do it, but it is not the case now. So what? Let us say you want to go to a place and you have a robot which which is something like this. Okay, in order to go there or go to some other location, you have a different solution this time. Okay, this time your joint angle should be uh, oriented in this manner. Okay, so if at all you move joint wise, okay, so starting from here, if this makes something around 90 degree, now it is more than 120 degree. Okay, relative angle as I'm saying. So 90 to 120 degrees, this joint has to move, and this joint, let us say this is something around 100 degrees. Okay, and this is something around 120 degrees. Okay, so the first link goes from 100 to 120 degrees, second link goes from 90 to 120 degrees. Okay, and then this point, end effector point, shifts from this to this. So this is your first location and this is your second location. Got it? If you move joint wise, it will be very abrupt. If at all you have to go gradually from this point to this point in a straight line manner, it may not be possible. Okay. So if you move joint wise, end effector moves in a arc. Okay. It goes like this. Okay. So it always follows a arc. But in this case, if at all you have to move it in a straight line, you should have a set of points, intermediate points, for which you know all the joint angles. One by one, you put both the joints simultaneously and synchronously to those joint angles one by one. So for this position, you have a set of joint angles for joint angle 1, angle 2. For this position, for each and every intermediate position, you have set of angle 1 and angle 2. Okay, and you keep them one by one, put them one by one, commanded to the robot, and robot goes in a straight line. In this case, your motion is very smooth and it is always in a trajectory in Cartesian space, and it looks quite elegant. Okay, it is now no more like a breakdance. Okay, so that is why this type of motion is very very important. You have to command your robot using inverse kinematics way. Okay, you cannot afford to have a joint motion trajectory to reach somewhere. In that those cases, if you move joint motion way, you, it will go in an abrupt way and in a circular arc fashion, and sometimes it becomes quite unpredictable, and effector trajectory cannot be predicted instantly. Okay, and your robot may hit somewhere, and sometimes few applications they demand inverse kinematics way, like an arc welding or a painting robot. It has to follow a particular trajectory, and effector goes in a peculiar way. Okay, that follows the bonnet. Let us say it is painting a bonnet, it will always follow the trajectory and it will always be perpendicular to the surface, maybe, or it follows a trajectory which is exactly following the profile of the surface. Okay, so that is why it is very very important, and that is why we are doing it. Okay, so what is the problem is your end effector position is known, and you have to find out the joint angles so that you reach to those end effector poses. Poses means, because I have don't have to just go to a place Rather, I have to follow a trajectory and reach to a different place. This trajectory is specific. It cannot violate that trajectory. So you have a set of joint trajectories as well, which cannot violate. Okay, so that for each and every joint angles you reach to a place. So this is what is the definition of inverse kinematics, and this is how it is um, done. Okay. So now how we'll approach this? There are various ways to solve this particular problem. One of them is algebraic way, trigonometrical algebraic solution that is done. Another way could be geometric way. There are many other methods like wrist partitioning method, matrix inversion based technique, and iterative solution. Iterative solutions are more preferable for robots with more than 6 degrees of freedom. Okay, for which solving inverse kinematics is really challenging. Okay, so these are the reasons, and we'll do one by one. Okay, we'll start with algebraic solution first. Okay, so we'll do directly by examples. So these are some of the problems, quite long. Now you have been thinking how it is done. Okay, and how you will make your own robot. If at all you have made one, how you can make it run in an elegant way. Okay, so this is the way you can do it. We'll see by demonstration and analytical examples as well. We have some software by which I'll demonstrate that. Okay, so few keywords which are very important before we start this solving this problem. One of them is solvability. Solvability, generally all systems with revolute and prismatic joints having total of 6 degrees of freedom or less in a serial chain are solvable. Not all systems are solvable. Okay, not all systems are solvable. You intend to solve them, but it may be possible that this system forms an algebraic equation which is not solvable. Maybe we'll encounter a few of them. I'll give you some unique examples which has those problems. So that happens specifically with in case of any constraints, like a humanoid may have some constraints, that is where your robot cannot go. Okay, or maybe you want to go there but your joint is not allowing you to go to that particular angle, so it is not solvable for that reason. Okay, so there are many such reasons. We'll discuss that later. So that is what is solvability. Okay, and then there is a reachable workspace. It is the volume of workspace that a robot can reach, at least in one possible configuration. Configuration means position and orientation combined together. Okay, if you extend your arm fully, you can reach somewhere. Okay, so let us say your robot has been given a workspace. Okay, this whole volume is known as workspace. Why? Because your robot can go there, maybe in a fully stressed condition, or maybe by twisting your arms in a way that it goes there. Okay, it simply goes there. So that becomes your reachable workspace. So a robot, in order to make inverse kinematics solvable, should the point should lie within that reachable workspace. If it is not within those reachable workspace, again it becomes unsolvable. Okay, your robot cannot be solved for that particular pose. Okay, that means your joint angles, any possible configuration of that set of joint angle is not possible that can take your robot to that particular pose. Okay, so these two are interrelated things. Okay, and that is what is very important before you start solving any problem. Okay, so let us start with first one of them. Okay, so I started with the simplest one. One link solution is of no meaning because everything is constrained. You have no control over x and y. Both are related to each other. Both are related to each other. If at all you intend to change, let us say you just have one link. In this case, what will happen? If you change x, y also changes. You cannot independently control x and y. So it cannot do any valuable work until unless your point strictly has to be in a circular arc. That is not always possible. and that is why one link robot has no meaning. So it starts with at least two, so that you can go at least in a plane. Okay, so if at all it is a robot of this kind which has two links, first link length is a1, next is a2. First angle with respect to the global frame, that is the base frame, is theta 1. Next is your relative angle, that is theta 2. Okay, so theta 1 and theta 2, these are the two joint angles by which your robot can take this end effector, okay, to any place in xy. Is it any place? This time your workspace, let us say you have two different link lengths, that is a1 and a2, and let me start with a1 greater than a2. So how will your workspace look like? So this is your x-axis, this is your y-axis, and your first link can be fully stretched like this, second link can be something like this. Okay, so it can go to a maximum extent, that is a1 plus a2. So that is the maximum possible distance where your robot can go. So it can create a circle of radius a1 plus a2. So that is the maximum possible extent. And what is the minimum value which is possible? Again, it will be somewhere in between, which is a1 minus a2. How? Let me draw it once again. So that particular scenario will be something like this. Okay, so this is your link. First link can go something like this. Second link can be inward folded. So this can be something like this, so that your end effector lies here. Okay, and now this distance was a1, this distance is a2, so this remaining distance is a1 minus a2. This remaining distance is a1 minus a2, and this is the minimum distance where your robot can go. Okay, okay, that is the minimum x and minimum y. So this is where you can go. So effective workspace is this one. Okay, this shaded region. So it is an annular workspace where your robot can go. It cannot go to this region at all. Okay, so this is what is the workspace, reachable workspace of this robot. So a1 plus a2 to a1 minus a2, if it is an annular circle, annular space where your robot can go, so this is your reachable workspace. So your point, in order to make these equations solvable, your point should lie within this region, anywhere in this region, is it not? If at all you lie somewhere outside or somewhere inside, you cannot solve these two equations. Okay, that is forward kinematic equation. Forward kinematic equation. So let me wipe it off now. Okay, so this is your reachable workspace, and I expect all my points to lie within that reachable workspace. Okay, so starting with forward kinematics, we'll try to solve them now. We started with forward kinematics first. So what are they? That is x is equal to a1 cos theta 1, a2 cos theta 1 plus theta 2. As you know, C12 means cos theta 1 plus theta 2. Okay, so these are simple. This forward kinematics can be done by DH parameter technique or simply by projection. Over here you can directly visualize this. So x coordinate of this end effector is a1 cos theta 1, a1 c1, and how much is this one? From here to here is a2 c1 2 cos theta 1 plus theta 2. So overall x is this. Okay, similarly y is this. Done. So this is your forward kinematic. That means you know the angle, you have calculated the end effector position. So that is forward kinematic equation. Now I have to do inverse. That means I want to go to a pose or a position in this case only. that is xy given by xy. Okay, it can go anywhere in this plane given by xy. Now I have to solve for the angles that will take it to these two, abscissa and mantissa. Okay, so this is the one. Okay, now I'll start solving this one. So what I'll do first, I'll simply square them and add them. So what I'll get, squaring and adding, x square plus y square is equal to, so the first term is a1 square c1 square, a1 square s1 square. Summing them both, what you will get, a1 square c1 square plus s1 square. Okay, so this gives you 1, is it not? This will straight away give you 1 cos square theta plus sin square theta. So this is 1. Again, next term will be similar. Next term will be a2 c12 square, a2 square c12 square plus a2 square s12 square. Take common, what you will get? You will immediately get a2 square c12 square plus s12 square. Again this is equal to 1, so this is a2 square. So this square plus this square, this square plus this square finally takes you to a1 square, a2 square. Then now the combinational terms. So next combination term will be 2a1 a2, 2a1 a2, c1 c12. Similarly, square of this will be 2a1 a2 s1 s12. Take common 2a1 a2, what you will get, c1 c12 s1 s12. So is it quite clear? Hope it is clear. Yes, sir. Very good. So I will move ahead. So moving ahead, what I'll see now again, what this can be written as, this second term. So it is cos A cos B plus sin A sin B. So it is cos A cos B plus sin A sin B. So it is cos A minus B or B minus A, both are equally good. A minus B or B minus A, because cos minus theta is equal to cos theta. So effectively what you get here is, cos theta 1 plus theta 2 minus theta 1, is it not? So it is 1 2 and 1. So it is theta 1 plus theta 2 minus theta 1. So this is your cos. Okay, so effectively what this will give, these two goes off, so you are left with cos theta 2 or simply c2. Yes, any query here? I think you have got it. If not, then you can come back. Okay, so this is it. So what exactly this second term will take you to? This second term will take you to c2. Okay, squaring on adding of these two will take this, squaring and adding this and this will give you this. Okay, and finally you get what? Something like this. So effectively what you get is this. So now I'll move ahead now. Okay, so if you take isolate c2, okay, what you will get, x square plus y square minus a1 square plus a2 square divided by 2a1 a2. So it is quite simple, easy to understand, and you can reach here directly using cosine rule. That also is a way of reaching till here. Okay, so finally what I get, theta 2 solved. Theta 2 is now extracted for a given link length. Link lengths are a1 and a2. xy is the position. For this given position, at least theta 2 now you know. Now I have to find out theta 1. Okay, now I have to find out theta 1. There is alternative approach to do this again. Alternative approach, why I am telling this, Because in few books this is also there, and this is quite elegant way of doing this again. So if at all x and y is given, r is given by Pythagoras rule by r square is equal to x square plus y square. That is quite simple, using triangle OENC, that is triangle OEC. Again, using parallelogram law theorem, using parallelogram law, you can directly get using x and a1 and a2. Where is a1? This is a1, this is a2. Now you know a1 and a2. So if you know a1 and a2, how much is this diagonal? Okay, provided you know this angle alpha, it is given by this. So this is a1, this is a2. So how much is r? R is given by this parallelogram like this. Okay, so this also is quite clear. Now substituting both of these, you directly get x square plus y square is equal to this, that is alpha. Okay, so cos alpha is equal to this. This is very simple and trivial. Okay, how much is alpha? Alpha is pi minus theta 2. Okay, pi minus theta 2, or simply cos or theta 2 is equal to pi minus alpha. So if you take cosine on cosine of this, so cos theta 2 is negative of this. So you directly can get this. So this is another easier way of doing this. So cos theta 2 is exactly the same, the way something that we get just few minutes back. Okay, so this is cos theta 2 given for a given xy and link length. So you extracted theta 2. Okay, this is theta 2. So cos inverse of this. Now taking to a different level now. Okay, so now solving for what? Solving for theta 1. Now that I know theta 2, I have extracted this, I want to find out theta 1. Okay, so now again using triangle OEB, OE and B, this triangle. Okay, so this is an isolated triangle. Okay, you just look at this, what all things those are there is tan beta. Where is beta? Beta is over here. Beta is over here. Tan beta is this by this. Okay, so how much is that? It is a2 sine theta 2. a2 sine theta 2. If this is a2, this is a2 sine theta 2. Done. And how much is this? From here to here, it is a2 cos theta 2. Okay, so a1 plus a2 cos theta 2 is OB. OB. So effectively tan beta is equal to EB by OB, which is equal to EB by OB is equal to OA plus AB. So how much is OA? OA is simply A1 and AB is A2 cos theta 2. Done. So that is what. So and how much is EB? EB is A2 sine theta 2. Okay. So that is what is giving you this. Done. So this is first triangle and this is one of the expression that we have got for tan beta. Okay. Now moving to next, using triangle OEC. O, E and C. Okay. So tan gamma. Where is gamma? Gamma is here. Gamma is here. Okay. So tan of gamma is equal to perpendicular, that is EC by OC. Again, EC is simply Y and OC is X. So tan gamma is directly can be taken out. If at all you know XY, you started with you know XY. So XY is known, so gamma is straight away known. A2 is known. Theta 2 we have just extracted in the last slide. Theta 2 we have already extracted using XY and link lengths. Okay, so we already know this. So if you know theta 2, You know A1 and A2. You now know tan beta and you also know tan gamma. Okay. Using them for our benefit now. So beta is inverse relation this, gamma is inverse relation this. So now theta 1 is gamma minus beta. Theta 1, that is what we wanted to know. So theta 1 is gamma minus beta, which is equal to this minus this. So that is what we wanted. Now we know theta 2, we know x and y, we know link lengths, we have evaluated theta 1. So first thing that was extracted using inverse kinematics, we know xy. You first calculate theta 2 using theta 2 and link lengths A1 and A2. All these will give you theta 2 also. Okay, so you now know theta 1 and theta 2 both. Okay, so that is how it is solved. So for a given position, you have now solved for this. Now see the ambiguity, what could be there, what else could be the solution. Okay, so if you know, if you recall cosine solution, because this is a cosine solution, theta 2 cos inverse. So if it is positive or negative, both of them is going to give you same angle. Or for a given position xy, you can have two solutions of theta 2. Okay, because you see, if you see a cosine plot, it has two positions for which you have same um, values. Okay, so that means either you can have this angle or you can have this angle. Your value along this direction is same. Okay, that means that is what is creating ambiguity. So that means theta 2 can have two values, one is positive, other one is negative. Okay, what does that physically mean? That means theta 2 can be, with respect to this line, it can either go to this direction or it can go in other direction. Okay, it can go in other direction. Both the values are same, but the signs are negative and positive. Okay, so depending on theta 2, both the values of theta 2, you will get theta 1 also two different values, because it was gamma minus beta. If beta has got two values, because now you have theta 2 has two values, beta will also have two values. Okay, so beta will two values of this, that is positive and negative. If you put them here, you will get two values of theta 1 also. That means for a given end effector position x and y, you have two possible solutions. One of them is known as elbow up solution, another one is known as elbow down solution. Elbow down solution. So this is the physical meaning of having two mathematical solutions for a given position x and y. Okay, so this is what is the ambiguity, and this is, here is your solution, and corresponding theta 1s will be like this, given by this. So for positive, this will be negative, for negative, this will be positive. Done. So that is what, these are the two different solution of a two link manipulator. So you see, forward kinematics, when we did forward kinematics in case of serial robots, for a set of joint angles you always reach to a position, but that is not the case in case of inverse kinematics. For a given position, you have n number of ways. In this case, for a two-link revolute planar system, what you had, you simply, for a given position xy, you have one configuration and another configuration, elbow up and elbow down configuration. For both of these, you uniquely can obtain a single end effector position. Okay, so how a robot take care of this ambiguity? Can you just say you go there to a position, robot will decide whether I have to take theta 1 and theta 2 like this only, because you have, for a given position, you have commanded robot to go to a position. Okay, you cannot, you have not specified whether elbow up and down, so there is ambiguity. So robot will solve, you have to specify, apart from x and y, there is one more parameter that you will have to tell. This specifically should say whether elbow up or whether elbow down. Without this, information is incomplete and robot cannot decide, it cannot go. In case of KUKA industrial arm robots, there is additional parameter which does this, takes care of this, is known as status and turn. We'll talk about status and turn when we'll go to 6 degrees of freedom inverse kinematic solution. Okay, so over here just one parameter could be, additional parameter is enough, that is elbow up and down. Okay, so if you just define this particular thing, you have completely defined the input thing, and robot is not in an ambiguous state, it will go there. But in case of 6-DOF, it can have more than one parameter. Okay, status and turn, these are the two additional parameters apart from the end effector position and orientation that is defined before you can take your robot to a particular place. Okay, so that is how it is solved in case of robot. Okay, now taking an example of a 3R manipulator. Okay, something that you have done now forms the basis for inverse kinematics of n number of robots now. This is the most important concept that you have learned just now, that is 2 degree of freedom planar robot. So now that you already know the solution of 2 degree of freedom robot, okay, you can straight away do solutions for many other robots. So you must be thinking, you might be thinking that just solving a 2-DOF has given you some ambiguity and solution was complex. How difficult could it be if it is a 3-DOF or a 6-DOF system? Yes, they are difficult. But now that you know one major chunk of the solution, okay, and this forms the part, many part in many of the robots. Okay, so moving ahead with 3 degree of freedom system, this one. Now that you already know 2-DOF solution, a planar system with 3 links, which is like this. Let me explain the system first. It is a 3R planar manipulator, which has first link of link length A1, next is A2, third is A3. Okay, there are relative angles. First link makes theta 1 with respect to the ground frame, which is fixed frame. Okay, theta 1 from the horizontal. Next is relative angle with respect to axis A1, link A1. If it is extended, this is relative angle. Next one is another relative angle. Why they are relative? Because your motor is mounted on the link A1. Your second motor is also mounted on the link A2. Okay, so that is driving the link 3. So motor gives you a motion with respect to itself. Okay, not with respect to the ground. So that is the reason relative angles are given here. Okay, so this is link A1, A1 making theta 1, theta 2 over here, theta 3 over here. So end effector pose E can take you to XYZ. Okay, Z is not going to change because this is a planar robot. Thus, Z will remain always in a plane at a constant distance. So let us say Z is always equal to 0. So what can change? So if there are 3 inputs, okay, 3 different things which can be adjusted. So apart from having position XY, okay, this robot can take this point to a position XY and it can take you to a point. Okay, if at all it is an end effector or a gripper, it can take it to a position XY it can also orient this point, okay, this gripper in multiple number of ways. So it can orient it in this manner. With the same position, it can be oriented like this. It can be oriented like this. Okay, for the same position XY, it can be oriented in a multiple ways. So that is given by orientation angle psi. Okay, orientation angle psi. Okay, so this is a additional thing that you are going to get apart from taking robot to anywhere in. This is like an engineering drafter. Okay, your engineering drafter has got exactly similar way. So, and protector, you can adjust the angle, that is the third one, and you can place it anywhere on your engineering drawing board. Okay, this one is exactly similar. So this is your 3-link engineering drafter. Okay, so these are the 3 angles that controls XY position and the orientation of end effector. Then now that you know already, if you can somehow find out point 2, so the remaining system you have just solved. That means remaining, if you know this location, P2 location, if you know x dash y dash, that is the location of P2, you have just solved a 2-link manipulator. So for a given x dash y dash a1 and a2, you have solved for theta 1 and theta 2. So we'll try to get P2 first. If at all you know P2 anyhow, okay, you are done because you already know the solution for remaining 2 terms. So you will always now and on you try to find out something that is known. If at all solution for a subset of a manipulator is known, you try to find out reach the parameters, reach till the parameters which is required to find out the rest of the angle based on the subset manipulator. Okay, so that is what is done now. Okay, so how to define that? Okay, so this is your angle, that is the end effector orientation angle. Just look at the last link, A3. A3 is known. Angle with respect to ground, that is psi angle, is known. This end effector position is also known, that is xy is known. So what all things that you know is xy, and angle with respect to the ground, that is the absolute angle, is known. If, and this is your end effector point E. This is an isolated figure of the same manipulator. And what is this point? This is nothing but P2. Okay, this is nothing but P2. So I want to find out P2. So how much is P2? So if this is X, okay, so whole of the frame is something like this, X and Y goes like this. So this distance is X till here, okay. So this distance till here is Y. So you know this point, okay. So if you know A3, you know A3, you know this angle psi. So how much is this? This distance is A3 cos of psi, is it not? And how much is this? This is A3 sine of psi. So this P2 will be this, is it not? So P2 is now easily obtained as, I have named it as P2 x coordinate. It is actually equal to given x minus A3 cos psi. Similarly, P2 y coordinate will be y minus A3 sin psi. Clear? So now you know P2 x and y coordinate. That means you now know P2 completely, which is now known, and the remaining system is a 2R planar manipulator. So now I'll use P2 x and y lengths A1 and A2 to find out theta 2 and theta 1. Okay. So now you know theta 2 and theta 1 using the earlier system that we did just now using equation 3 and 4. Let me take you there. Okay. So this was your theta 1 and theta 2 using these two equations. You know this point, so you have calculated these angles. So this was there. So now again, for using additional link, this was there. I found out this point. Okay, this is P2 over there. Okay, so I find out this point. Using this point and using these two equations, I will find out theta 1 and theta 2. So that is what is done here. Okay, so this is what. So I now know theta 1 and theta 2. Now, how much is psi? So you have moved by an angle theta 1, again theta 2, again theta 3. That makes end effector pose as psi. That is psi is equal to theta 1 plus theta 2 plus theta 3. Is it not? And you already know theta 1 and theta 2 using two link subsystem. Two link subsystem which is here. Okay. So theta 3 can now be evaluated using this equation. You just extend it further and you will get this. So thus all theta 1, theta 2 and theta 3 are known for given input x, y and orientation. X, y and orientation. See, we did not much of an exercise here. We have already done quite good of an exercise on two-link manipulator. Now two-link will help me to solve many manipulators which contain this as a part of them. Okay, so even a huge robot like this, which is 6 DOF, you see this two links, this and this link, okay, is a two-link manipulator. If I can know somehow this point and this point, I can solve these two intermediate angles, and that is what I will be using from now on. Okay, now again, what additionally I know is three-link solution. I already have a three-link solution in hand. Okay, so this time if at all a robot contains a three-link subset, I'll use this solution to find out my rest of the solution. So this is a huge benchmark solution, that is two-link manipulator, that will be used from now on for many other robots. Okay, so what is this? This is a type of planar kinematic decoupling. What I have done, I have decoupled the given problem to position and orientation problem. Okay, so I have found out, decoupled this robot. This part gives me position and this part, remaining part, gives me orientation. Okay, and I have found out, I have decoupled the robot till here. So orienting part, I have used this orientation angle to reach till this point, and I have used positioning solution to get my rest of the solution. So I have kinematically decoupled this robot to a position and orientation solution, and I have done this. Okay, so I'll demonstrate this using Cinderella 2.0, or if at all higher version is there, I'll see that. So I'll demonstrate this also in next video. Okay, maybe tomorrow's class. Okay, so with this I think I am almost done. Okay, so the one more stuff I'll just demonstrate. So how it will physically look like. So one of the solution for elbow up and elbow down solution for this link. So if this is the case, okay, this is x, y and psi. These are the angles for the given link length, this and this and this. This is one of the solution. Another solution means this. That means end effector position is same, x1 y. Okay, x and y. Orientation, that is this angle, remains the same. Okay, but remaining subsystem has got two solutions. One is like this. Okay, another one is like this. So two solutions, physically they will look like this. Okay, so even 3R planar manipulator has two different solutions, two different inverse kinematic solutions. That doesn't mean a 3R will have three intermediate solutions, three different solutions. This also have three solutions only. Okay, So I think that's all for now. That is for today. We'll discuss a few more things, few more ambiguity issues in next week. Okay.